Okay, our lesson for today is on frequency tables and histograms. And all a frequency table is, it's a table we set up to help us collect data, and it'll break our data into intervals for us. So if I were given this group of data here, I would set up my frequency table. The first column is always just your data, whatever you're looking at. The middle column is for tally marks, and the last column is your frequency. And so when I'm setting up my intervals, they have to be even size intervals. I have to go, like if I go from 1 to 5, then my next one would have to be 6 through 10. After that would have to be 11 through 15, and then 16 through 20, and then 21 through 25. So there are 5 numbers in each one of these intervals. I can't go 1 through 5 and then 6 through 12 and then 13 through 15. Those are all different. They have to be the exact same size every time. Once I have made up my intervals, then all I have to do is go through my data and mark them in the correct set, in the correct interval, using tally marks. So the 3 would go here, and so would the 5. 8 goes down below, and I notice that I am crossing these off as I go because I want to make sure that I don't miss any, and I want to make sure that I don't count any twice. So I will always, when I'm going through my data, I always cross them off while I'm doing this. And so I'm just going to finish these up quickly. Don't forget that when I get to 5 marks in one section, one interval, I will cross that. The reason we do that, like that, the reason to do it is just to make it quicker to count later on. If I have a really large set of data and I end up with 27 tally marks in one interval, I don't want to sit there and count 27 individual tally marks. That's going to take a while. If I could go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 26, 27, it's much quicker and easier. So then for my frequency, all I do is write what the tally is as a number. So that is 4, 3 in that interval, 5 in this interval, 2 in that one, and 6 in the last interval. Now, histograms look just like bar graphs, but they actually come from frequency tables. So on the bottom of my histogram, instead of having categories, what I have down here are my intervals. So this would be 1 to 5. This would be 6 to 10, 11 to 15, 16 through 20, and 21 to 25. Up the side, what I'm graphing on there is the frequencies. So I have to find my biggest frequency, which is 6. And on my graph, I got to make sure I have enough room to get up to 6. So if I just count by ones here, that gives me plenty of room to get up to 6. And so maybe the data I'm looking at here is the number of hours students spend on homework in a month. And so down here, I would label this as hours. This side would be labeled as the number of students. And then I would title my histogram maybe hours worked on homework. But I always must label both axes, the bottom and the side, and I must title my graph every time I make one. And now I'm just going to go and make my bars. So the first interval had a frequency of 4. So this bar will come up to 4. Now the difference between a histogram and a bar graph is in a histogram the bars actually touch each other. So my next interval had a frequency of 3. So touching this bar, coming over here, is the next one. The third interval had a frequency of 5. So I'll bring this one up to here. My fourth one had a frequency of 2, and that touches off of that bar. And my last one had an interval, or had a frequency of 6. So I'll bring this one all the way up here. And those bars do touch. And this is what my histogram would look like. Intervals on the bottom, labeled what they're talking about. Go up the side high enough so that my biggest frequency can fit on there. Label that, and make sure I title my graph, and make sure the bars are touching in a histogram. And that's how you make a histogram.